Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode that we're doing here for the Startup Bulgaria Scale Edition. So, this time we're going to talk about scale. We're going to cover the main four topics of sales, product, how do we find and hire the right people, and how do we differentiate ourselves globally. And today I'm joined by Pallav, who has a very rich experience and very rich CV about products creation, design, launching, and so on. Hi, Pallav. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, Ognan, for having me on your show. Really excited for our conversation.
Yeah, and I'm also looking forward to your participation in person in Sofia in Bulgaria on the 13th of February. So, for those of you who still don't have a ticket for the conference, I recommend that you get one. This time it's a much smaller scale. We are going to be only 300 people at the Intercontinental Hotel in Sofia, right next to the parliament. And we're going to talk the whole day about scale. And then we're going to finish also with a session about networking or happy hour, the way we call it. Great. So I'm going to take the chance that Pallav is with us here today, and we're going to talk a little bit about launching products, designing and launching products successfully. And I think that's very crucial for everyone who is on the way to scaling up a business. So I know that many of you have right now services companies and you're launching particularly some products. Maybe you are just considering it, or maybe you already have some products. Maybe you launch them, and now it's all about how do we scale it globally? How do we make sure that more and more customers are using that and that we increase our revenues? So that's why my first question for you, Pallav, would be: I know that for those of you for those people who don't know you, they're going to go on LinkedIn, they're going to check your profile, and they're going to see the experience. There are so many companies like BCG. That's actually where we met, and then ING was one of them, and you even have your own projects and your own startup. So can you tell us, through all of these years of experience, what is the most crucial thing that you found out to be so that people can be okay? I'm going to do that again, right? Okay, Pallav. So for those of us who still don't know you, most probably people are going to go on LinkedIn. They're going to see your profile, and they're going to see that you have a lot of experience at BCG, ING. You even have your own startup, and you've been launching your own products. So can you tell us what is, in your opinion, the most critical thing towards launching products successfully?
Thanks a lot for that great question. And for people who are curious about my LinkedIn, I have to admit my profile is not really up to date or not really a fancy one, but I'm happy to introduce myself here so that you don't have to go to the LinkedIn. I'm Pallav. I'm originally from India, did my schooling and education from India. I'm also an engineer by background, and then went on to have some skills in the management world. I've been fortunate enough to work and live in various different countries. As Ogyan mentioned as well, I was privileged to spend time with some of the world leading consulting firms, retail banks, and so on and so forth. But on the other side, in terms of my clients, I also rubbed shoulders providing valuable advice to C level executives in various industries, mostly in financial services, insurance, travel, manufacturing, and also to some governments. So I have decent experience on what goes in the minds of executives who are managing and in the decision making positions in these organizations. To answer your question, Agnan, if I'm correct to understand, you said your question is what makes a winning product? Is that what
Yeah,
you?
exactly.
Before I answer that question, for me and maybe for your listeners as well, product nowadays is confused or it sounds more complex than it should be. Whereas in reality, what I understand product, anything or any platform, whether digital or non-digital, which helps sell value on a repeatable and scalable manner to a large amount of customers, that's a product. Of
Okay.
course, in today's time, people are surrounded and fascinated by a certain set of products. I'm referring to mostly like the social media products, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc., and also the platform which we are recording this conversation on.
Yeah.
People are nowadays people get more excited and talk more about the digital products of a certain kind, which are networking products. But anything which helps qualify and ticks these two criteria, which I mentioned, repeatable, scalable, and providing value to the customers, is a product for me. Even
Nice.
the tea or coffee which you drink in the morning, either from a barista, which is a productized service, or even from a capsule on your in your home on an espresso machine, is a product. It
Yeah.
is providing you value. I hope so. You're using good coffee machine or good coffee places. It is
I'm trying to.
is it repeatable? Because you use it multiple times, either the capsules or the powder, or just you're visiting your neighborhood cafe, and it's scalable. So that's what a definition of product to me. And
Great.
the winning formula, of course, we can talk more in detail, but again, I would like to keep it very simple. Two attributes: repeatable and scalable, and provides value to the customers.
Yeah. Got it. Okay, and I mean it's very good that we are starting with a definition because, as you said, like in the times where everyone is trying to build a product and so on, like people might get confused a little bit about what do I actually build on, and how do I actually become like a product provider. Maybe one thing that would be very interesting based on what you're saying is I don't know if how much you know about Bulgaria, and I'm very happy to show you our country in February when you arrive. But generally, Bulgaria is known to be very strong on in the IT services. So we have more than 10,000 IT sourcing companies. So these are companies where you have very skilled developers who are normally executing projects for companies all around the world. But it's normally about developing something based on some requirements. So, based on your experience, would you have any idea how, or like, what can we advise to these type of companies if they are considering to enter the product industry, right? Like to start offering products rather than custom projects. What can every business owner who is thinking about it, what can they start doing, or at least what can they start planning for?
I think that's a very good question, because I guess the way you are explaining about this landscape in Bulgaria, I think it's probably not just Bulgaria situation. There are also multiple economies, countries both in European continent and also outside Europe, especially Asia, who also are in this or were in this situation at some point in time in the last 20 years or so. Uh, I'm not an IT expert. However, I've been on the other side as a consultant, advisor, or in that situation to work with some of those people. My advice would be, if you are today a service provider, let's say you are a IT shop, what they usually call, where you
Yeah.
just service a client's need on a on demand basis. It's like, hey, I need to build a software for scheduling my calls. I don't know if that's a relevant example for the audience, but bear with me for some
Sounds
time.
like one. Yeah.
Yeah, and the client is from US, so let's make it more real. And they have come, they have you have sourced this client, and you have to build now a software solution for this client for scheduling problem. As a senior executive in this IT service company, of course, focus on this delivery. But at the same time, I would urge you to be a bit more open minded on thinking how I can, again, going back to my definition, make this process repeatable,
Hmm.
and how I can make it scalable. For example, is this client who has asked me and given me, I don't know, $1 million contract for making this software end to end? How many other clients are there in this same industry? Maybe let's say there's a healthcare client. So,
Yeah.
hey, let me look for number of other similar clients and research about them about in the healthcare space,
Hmm.
and see if I can also reach out to them and offer my services in the same manner. Because the amount of learning and research and the code base which must be built for this greenfield request, maybe some of that can be recycled and reused to also service five other clients with the same request.
Yeah.
And then maybe you could think, and again, I'm just trying to think out loud, if there's a scheduling software, then you can also look at now, hey, can I build it on the cloud so that I can offer my services not to just this healthcare provider, but also enable others to plug into my solution. And
Yeah.
maybe there's some opportunity in that space. So again, it will not lead you directly from a service to a complete product provider,
Mhm.
but it's a step in that journey, I would say. Yeah.
Got it. And one interesting thing you said, because you said you lived in many countries, so I'm pretty sure that you kind of seen things about products from all of these countries. So I'm curious, is there any common trend that you see, like whenever someone is trying to launch a product, or maybe are you saying, well, actually the geographical specifics of each country are so different that there is nothing in common? Do you see any common trends among countries?
So again, it's a very broad question, but
Yeah.
so I'm just trying to think what's coming to my mind in no particular order.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I
One
can
thing, yeah,
to
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, to provide you a little bit of context. So last time at the conference, we had guests from Finland, from UK, from Germany, and we were talking about what were the challenges in front of a startup. And we actually found out that the same challenges that the Bulgarian founder would have, they have them in Finland, right? Like, for example, being a small market, trying to sell, and directly you need to start selling in English to the broad market because your market is way too small. And like, for someone who is in Bulgaria, they might think, oh, for me, I'm in a small market. I need to be selling in English. But then we talked to people from Finland, and they told us, well, it's actually the same here, right? Like it's a typical challenge of running a business, and not a typical challenge of a Bulgarian running a business.
Yeah. So
That's something I'm
I
looking for.
think,
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's definitely the case, that there are similarities. However, I also would like to caution the founders or executives in this space. I think in today's world, where the focus is not just on raising capital and raising your valuation, but also having strong commercials and profitability, I think there is some merit in also going deep.
yeah,
So even if there is a Bulgarian startup and maybe you are only servicing a few markets, let's say Germany or let's say
yeah,
Romania or etc., don't try to rush with your product development. Hey, I want to now quickly launch in US and Canada and UK and Netherlands, etc. I think there is some merit, or more than some merit, in focusing only on one big market for the time being, for at least the early stage founders, and trying to get full control over the landscape in terms of, hey, this is the product. We know that we are not there yet in terms of refinement, but this is the roadmap to get there. This is the roadmap to get profitable as well. This is the roadmap to also sell some other services to the same client. So you're focusing on one area, and that also has compounded returns if done in the right, correct fashion. So while having a global outlook from the start is good, but as successful entrepreneurs can relate to it, yeah, it doesn't it's of no use if you raise a couple of $1 million showing fancy projections about your launch in US and UK and other big markets, but on the ground you are not winning. You're not winning clients. There is literally no roadmap of profitability. You're burning cash, and you're just a fancy popular founder on the newspaper, but in reality you're not even servicing Romania well, for example.
Yeah.
I would also urge founders to look on the other side as well,
Yeah.
when we talk
Got
about
it. And do you have some indication of like when do we say we're done with Romania and now we should go to another market? Or like, I mean, what should be a KPI that you would advise someone to look at before they try to expand to one more geography?
it. That's a very good question. And I can share what I think about it, but
Hmm.
maybe you
Yeah, of
should
course.
take it with a pinch of salt, because every situation, every founder, the kind of cash they're sitting on, the kind of clients they are, there's so many variables. But I would say, if if a founder has product market fit in
Hmm.
one of the markets which they are currently in. And again, product market fit means when you actually, your service or is actually on a point of break point, because of the amount of requests or the customers or the traffic on your services. I think that's a time when you should start to think, hey, can it be also relevant for this market or that market? Not do it, but start thinking about it, because then
Hmm.
eventually, maybe in a couple of quarters or year, you also have a product which is ready to go live in those markets. I think that's a good point in time to think about it.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's great. That's very helpful, Palaf. And one more thing I'm curious because you've worked in a huge company launching products and you've also launched products in your startup. So, what are kind of the key differences or key challenges? Because I'm pretty sure that many people who are watching are saying, well, it's great when you're working for a multinational bank and you just launch a product. But it's another thing if I'm on my own and I'm trying to launch something. So, what are the key challenges or key differences that you've seen?
I think one is the speed of execution. Of course, it's it's much higher in a startup compared to a
Yeah.
big company, and especially in the financial services space. The other point is about, again, kind of linked with the speed, but also lots of red tape in terms of launching or bringing a product to the market, or even before that, developing a product from an idea or concept to a working prototype. And that's because they're in a large company. By design, the organization is such that there are certain processes of doing things. And especially when you're launching a new product or making any changes to the existing product, there are certain processes which are laid down by the company which you have to follow. And
Yeah.
that can actually lead to longer cycle time, and also
Hmm.
a bit of frustration, especially on the team members who are the core innovators. Because then, for example, uh, let's say you want to launch a fancy cross sell platform for
Hmm.
customers. You have an idea as, let's say, a person on the business side and the innovator, that this is how it would look like. These are some of the nice inspirations I've drawn from players in the other industry who do cross sell very well, and this is how the customer would interact with it. This is how it would be priced. Not exactly, because you don't know the exact price. uh, you've come up with that, you've come up with a business case, but then you have to, that concept or the conversation has to go through, and also back and forth, through 10 different teams and departments, like 10 different, like I'm not even exaggerating,
Okay.
before it can be put up for a proposal to the senior executives, or let's say the board members, for approval to actually start deploying resources to
Hmm.
build that product. So, and then once it's built, then again it will go through the 10 different teams to
Of course.
finally double check if everything has been built in accordance to the processes and accordance to how the proposal stated, etc., and blah blah blah. So
Okay.
you can already see from the volume of my description that it will take a lot of time to bring
Yeah.
the idea to fruition. However, big companies are pretty good in ironing out all the details. So that I would say is the pro. That there's so many experts. They can afford so many people with tons of experience that they would look it like after like 10 years down the line, and all the regulations which are going on and regulations which are in place or which are in the table, and how that will impact their products and customer experience. So they look at all the different spheres, which I think, frankly speaking, startup doesn't even have the luxury to.
Yeah,
So I think that's a bit of pro, depending on how you want to balance it with the speed and what's important for you. Right? These are some of the things which are very different in a big company compared to a startup.
got it.
Yeah.
So, from what you said, it looks like being a startup is, or launching products as a startup is very attractive because you can be faster, you don't have all these processes and so on. But, kind of, what are, I guess, the biggest challenges that then come? And maybe what were your biggest challenges when you started launching products as a
Oh, yeah,
person and not from
several
point of
as
view?
well. Yeah, I was just so the points which I covered are obviously not exhaustive. Yeah, several. One is access to customers. A startup would not have the amount of customer behavior data to 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 basically inform the design of your product.
Hmm.
Big companies have millions of existing customers across demographics, across age groups, across persona types. They can just tap into one of those pool of information, and that is it. And they already know what a startup may not know. Startup by design is not supposed to know the experience of so many millions of people, because if they would know, they would not think about the same problem from a unique point of view, and that's what makes startups unique, and also differentiated. So I think that's
Yeah,
a pro for a big company, a con for a startup. However, startups, I think, should be aware that that will be a con for them. They cannot have customer data of millions or thousands of customers at the beginning. The other thing which I would also add, big companies typically do not have constraints in regards to capital or expertise.
yeah,
I think it's kind of irrelated, because if startup's main asset, at least in the beginning, is their founding team. So
yeah,
founding team hopefully should have the combined expertise which is required to make that idea successful. A big company has a lot of experts, both internal and external. They can tap onto the best lawyers if they are in trouble. They can tap onto the best IP experts to get the information about the latest IP and how to navigate that landscape. They're the best, let's say, engineers. They can just hire them with nice compensation from all around the world. So I think those resources are also a big advantage for a big company. Startups typically wouldn't have that, right? That's why they raise capital, and that's why they have to cut corners and be really frugal in the beginning. So those are some
got
of
it.
the big differences, I would say. um, in terms of other differences, if I come across,
Yeah,
I'll put them across. Yeah, for now I
okay.
think these are the
Well, I think
major differences. Yeah.
that's all. I mean, already very, very helpful and very useful. One thing I'm curious, like based on what you said, is you mentioned that large companies would be having access to this large pool of customers, so they can find out what is needed and so on. Um, and then, I mean, what comes to my mind is generally for someone who is just starting, like if we don't have this data, if we don't have access to so many customers that we could potentially ask, what's the best way to find out or to make sure that the product we are designing is actually going to be used and it's not something that we assumed is going to be a great thing? We built it, then we brought it to market, and then no one was using it. So, what would you advise a startup to do?
What I follow whenever I need to test a new idea, and I've had a lot of, let's say, failed startups or ideas in my bag. So I
Okay.
have some experience on taking something from a piece of paper to actually giving it in the hands of potential customer.
Hmm.
And I think that process should be as swift and as quick as possible. You should not wait for months or definitely not years thinking about, oh, this is how I would make this product. This is how its buttons will look like. This is how the transitions would look like. This is how the payments would work. And let me make the best version of it before even speaking or giving or getting the feedback of one potential customer. I think that loop, if
Hmm.
you can really accelerate and shorten that loop, that is the one advice I would give all the startup founders to adopt, and also founders who are successful in one product but maybe trying to repeat the process for another new product or opportunity. That would be my advice, because
Yeah.
you actually have no idea how many iterations and modifications and new lives this product or problem will see in the course of the timeline. So even if something works for a set of customers today, after 6 months, if you look at it, it will look different. After two
Yeah.
years, it will look different. All you can do as a founder is stick with that problem and be open minded to the what the feedback you are receiving from the clients. That's the
Great.
only thing in your hand.
Great, great, Olaf. Thank you. And one thing, like if we go back to the example you were mentioning about the scheduling software, which is a typical B2B case. So how would we gather customer feedback about this one? Like, I mean, in other words, till what moment you're telling a potential customer, hey, can you just test this thing? And till what moment you're saying, hey, why don't you buy it and use it? Like, when do you start selling and when do you just test?
No, that's a very good question as well, and very, very important, right? Because if you are a founder and saying, oh, all that's good in for B2C, but what about B2B? Let me share two examples. One is from my own startup experience,
Yeah.
and I've done that several times. One time we started, and me and another friend of mine who is in the legal compliance domain for food companies, very
Hmm.
specific. I had zero knowledge about it at that time, and I saw him working, like just working for this company. And what they do is they are responsible to ensure that the labels on the products, so I don't have a consumer product or a biscuit packet or cookie packet in front of me, but let's say pick a bottle of Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
See the label behind it. Label has a lot of information, right, about nutrition, weight, and when it goes bad, shelf life, this and that, manufacturing. So it's a very important piece of work for big companies, consumer companies.
Hmm.
And my friend was responsible for checking whether all of this label design is compliant or not.
Yeah.
And they have some sort of archaic software to do that. Again, for entrepreneurs, it's a good opportunity. Still a very
Yeah.
hot space. And I said, how? Why can't we make it more 21st century? Using AI, of course, and using the OCR technology, make it more efficient for these big companies, because these big companies spend millions of dollar hours
Yeah.
in reviewing these labels. And I was like, my friend was like, okay, that's a great idea. I can provide you my input, but I'm in contract with this company, so I can't put myself out there. You have to do
Yeah.
the testing and whatever. If we get the first client, I leave my job.
Okay.
And we I used to sit with him, I used to interview him, and then develop the whole concept about it, business plan, hired someone from another country remotely to build a first prototype. Very simple prototype, uh, like there are 10 fields in a label. We For the
Hmm.
prototype we only pick two, just as an example, right? Because
Yeah.
it would take a lot of time. So that's another message: how to optimize and spend less money on a prototype. Don't try to create the whole product. My only intention was to supplement my conversation with the potential client or executive in this big B2B landscape
Yeah.
that I'm speaking. And in the speaking, I can supplement it by this link. It's a working link, not even a website, like, like,
Yeah.
and then person can click on it and see, oh, this works, that's it. That's it. And
Yeah.
then we go back to the conversation. That was my intention. So yeah, we did that. And in 1 month, we were in conversation with senior people, the exact decision maker for
Yeah.
this function, in at least $2 billion companies.
Nice.
Of course,
Okay.
as you can see, otherwise I would have already mentioned that in the beginning of the presentation, on the conversation.
Yeah.
We did not, unfortunately, proceed it further with this idea for different reasons. But yeah, that's a great example on how we actually identified a problem in the B2B space,
Yeah.
how I extracted the relevant and important information
Yeah.
to think about what could be my pitch to a B2B executive,
Hmm.
how I optimize and prioritize the only things which matter in a form of a
Yeah.
very dirty prototype.
Hmm.
And then, of course, we can talk about it later. How do you actually reach out to these people, right? Because that's also very important. There are a lot of smart people out there with amazing technical skills and an amazing drive, but they may have just made the prototype themselves because they're coders, but
Got it.
they don't know how what to do with it now. They don't know how
Yeah.
to reach out to people, what to write to them. So
Yeah.
I think that's more the soft skills part, which I think, again, I mentioned to you once in our
Yeah.
conversation as well.
Yeah. I know you. I know you're delivering also kind of trainings and sessions
Yeah,
on that
yeah,
one
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Uh, okay, one more question because I mean I don't know if you know the first Bulgarian unicorn is called Payhawk, and what they do is they are doing solutions for employee spending. So like kind of managing how much money are people are spending, and like I mean, eventually that's something that everyone wants to have a good overview of, and ideally control and manage. And then in the last during the conference in November, we were interviewing the CEO, and he said that for them the most important thing has always been serving an important need of a company. So, like really offering a product for something that's really crucial for the activities of a company, not like some niche solution that I don't know, maybe just one process manager cares about. Do you have any advice for anyone who is kind of working on some product but is maybe worried that his solution or what he is working on is not satisfying this important crucial need of a company, but it's just maybe I don't know, like I mean if you compare like a CRM where apparently every company needs a CRM and it's a huge thing and hundreds of salespeople will be using it and the service department will be using it and so on, versus maybe a simple solution that just puts subtitles on a video, which is maybe used just in the if there is a social media department or something like that. Like should we be worried about what how big the need is that we're trying to serve?
I'll give you the answer in two parts.
Yeah.
One is my answer as, as a ex BCGer, or as a
Yeah.
person who has worked in a bank in a senior position, and the other is a more heart to heart answer, entrepreneur to entrepreneur.
Okay.
First part of the answer is the potential size of your market matters, because if the market is sizable
Hmm.
and or projected to grow at a much greater pace in the future, then again it is sizable market. And that matters because eventually your solution commercially will be capturing a small percentage of that market, the typical mathematical calculation which goes with these
Yeah.
kind of topics. And that matters. If size of market is very small, like as you mentioned, Onyan, the subtitle
Yeah.
software or service, yeah, the usage is huge, but if you look at the players or the market, that's almost non-existent because it all happens automatically, or it's one of the features of a software with 50 other features. So I think one needs to be, as an entrepreneur, as a person in that journey, needs to be mindful of, hey, whatever I'm doing, how many customers can I expect in the future who gonna pay for use it and pay for it? If you
Yeah.
are really confused about this, get some advice from people around you. They can help you calculate this or guesstimate this. But even if
Hmm.
you are still confused, I think, yeah, there is some sort of truth to it. That leads to my
Yeah.
second part of my answer, which is more heart to heart. It totally depends on where you are in the journey as an entrepreneur, whether you are
Hmm.
just in the ideation stage, you're already working for a company, but you are trying to, brainstorm every weekend with your friends and try, on that kind of stage, you have not taken the leap. Or if you are already have a product, some employees, some customers who are paying you, as an entrepreneur, we all know, even if I tell someone today, hey, don't proceed further because of the first reason, as a true entrepreneur, you would do it anyways,
Okay.
just for the itch of it,
Yeah.
because the best or the most successful entrepreneurs have been the ones who try to solve one of their own problem,
Yeah.
and then eventually they realize, oh, it's not just me, it's Tom as well, it's Peter as well, and millions of other people eventually. Some people are able to see that early. Some
Hmm.
people are so focused that they don't pay attention to that part, and they eventually discover, or the investors or the mentors make them see that, whatever. So that would be my other answer. Depending on where you are in the journey, if there's too much to lose, that you are already on a good trajectory and you have customers, if you don't think about the next big product and it's solving one of the 11th most important problem of these customers, then there's a you need to weigh in the choice. Hey, I already have customers. Now if I pitch them for this 11th important problem of theirs, they will probably not be that reactive, they engaged.
Hmm.
But if you are a person who is just starting off, I think just go on, gain that experience. The only way you can actually answer how big is the market is by actually doing it.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Got it.
nobody has the clue. When Reid Hoffman came up with this crazy idea of making a platform where people will send each other requests and connect professionally, so like
Yeah.
the professional version of Facebook, he did not know how big it would be, and people
Yeah.
also did not know how big it would be. So just go on with it. Be mindful of what you have to lose if you don't
Yeah.
answer that question. But if you have nothing to lose as such, just go and try it. Then that's what differentiates entrepreneurs from the rest.
Got it. Okay. One more question. I'm curious because in the beginning you said you have engineering background, and apparently you're very talented in designing and launching products. So can we say something to the people who don't have an engineering background? Like, is there any hope for them, or should they go back and study engineering, or like, is there any criteria that would kind of define if we should try to create products if we don't have this engineering background?
So that's true, Ognian, what I said. I'm an engineer. I also have some experience in designing a lot of products from scratch. And then, of course, with the help of other better designers and developers, I have made those products into real life products. But having said that, my engineering degree as such is in chemical engineering. So I'm not
Nice.
a coder, I'm not a
Yeah.
developer. And that's, I think, important for people to know. I like drawing. So I
Yeah.
like painting and drawing. That's how I enjoy the process of putting my ideas on a piece of paper and using my experience both as an executive and as a customer of various products. I try to bring that experience and see, okay, that's how the first page could look like, that's how the second page could look like, that's how the buying process could look like, and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
However, there is no direct relationship with my engineering education and this experience. So my answer to your question is yes, anyone can be a product designer, don't if you don't come from one of those fields where usually a lot of successful product managers or designers come from, I think you should not worry, because any problem in this world can really use an outside in perspective which is unique from the convention. And who knows, maybe you are the one who becomes successful than the rest, just because you didn't look like them, or you did not have that background. So
Got
for
it.
example, um, yeah, for example, Airbnb's Brand Chesky, he actually went to a school of design,
Hmm.
but the the industry which he was dealing with was hardcore brick and mortar, like
Yeah.
homes.
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with his direct engineering degree. However, he leveraged his design degree to make the first version of the product or Airbnb experience digitally quite smooth. But the industry he was dealing with had nothing to do with
Yeah.
his direct experience.
Got
Also,
it.
uh, Starbucks founder, um, what's his name? So Starbucks founder. I've read his story as well, and he started Starbucks when he was 35, 36, or 37. Had no experience in running a cafe. He had experience in trading and doing business and sourcing coffee beans, but he had no experience in running a retail B2C cafe.
Hmm.
Just look around, look inwards to your own experience, and be truthful to the process.
Hmm.
And eventually, with the right kind of attitude and people around you and the right feedback, you can potentially convert your idea into a product, you know.
Got it. And maybe just based on what you just said, I'm curious, like, because I really like the advice you're giving. So, like, I want to get more more of this. So, based on that, we just said, for example, some of them were specializing, I mean, on something, and then they decided to go for something totally different. Now, the question is for everyone who is just at this early stage that you said, talking with friends, brainstorming, and so on. Do you recommend people should focus on something that they are already have a lot of experience with, or they should go for a totally green field, like different area that they don't really know that well, and maybe that's why they have the opportunity to discover something that people in the particular industry don't really know or think about or don't see.
Yeah, again, I think my answer to this, again, I can give a more consulting and more executive answer, but I would
Yeah.
not do that. I would straight away jump to the other answer. As an entrepreneur, the fun is in the journey.
Yeah.
So if someone is really passionate and bothered about a certain problem being there, and they cannot live without seeing the solution to it, they should think about, okay, how this problem can be solved, be it any industry. Can I get the first customer? If the answer is no, why not? Oh no, I don't know coding. Okay, do I know what needs to be coded? Don't know. Okay, then maybe do you can you find out what needs to be coded? Yeah, I have some idea. Sure. Okay, put that in a piece of paper, discuss with one friend or two friends, and most importantly, do you have the courage and the conviction to go and approach your first potential client or the person who has the problem? Forget about the client part. Then validate that concept. Once you have that, can you now go to and discuss with a developer or an IT person on what will be required to get this done? Not doing it, but getting the information, timelines, complexity, and other things. Like, oh, yes, I have this idea. Now, can you go back to them and see if the reaction changes? Do they appreciate it more? Are they asking you more questions? So I think the beauty is in this process. Does not matter this person in my description, where he or she comes from, what kind of education experience they have. Do they have gray hairs, or are they a young teenager? Does not
Yeah.
matter. If you are passionate enough, you will figure out a way to leverage your environment to work for you. Friends,
Got it.
family, your virtual network. Nowadays you can write to anyone on LinkedIn, you can reach out to any person in network and ask for help. So
Yeah.
these things, there are smart ways to do all of these things. You can hire someone from Eastern Europe or India or Philippines. You can do a bunch of things by just investing $100. You can do a
Yeah.
bunch of things, and I think $100 is not is a decent amount. so
Got it.
so so yeah, just focus on the problem. I think there's too much noise about whether you should do like this, or 5 ways to be successful, or 4 ways to be a unicorn, and all those kind of um, content out there.
Yeah.
But eventually it can be distracting, so just focus on the problem, do the
Hmm.
work, and eventually you will figure out the right way of doing it.
Got it. Well, I agree. I think this is kind of great advice from you, and maybe with that we can end the conversation. Unless you say there was something very important that I didn't ask you about.
No, nothing comes to my mind, and I
Okay.
think rest will be covered maybe next month.
Yeah, we exactly. I was going to say we have another opportunity on 13th of February at the scale event of Startup Bulgaria. So we started in November with a huge conference, 3 days, 2,000 people. This time we're going a little bit smaller, just with the business owners who are working on scaling their businesses. So it's going to be very exciting, very thoughtful. I hope that everyone who watched enjoyed all the insights from Pallav. I think they're very, very useful for everyone who is considering making the switch from services to products, or who is not even considering any switch, but rather launching new products directly. And I promise there will be much more in his session on the 13th. Again, we are going to be in the Intercontinental Hotel, Sofia, 13th of February, just before St. Valentine's Day. So that's something meaningful to do before that. And I thank you once again, Pallav, for joining and taking the time today. It was really useful and really helpful also to myself. I'm pretty sure it's going to be even more useful in a month from now.
Awesome.
And once again, thank you very much. Good luck with your adventures and with your projects. And we'll see you very soon
Thanks a
in the
lot. I
world.
really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope there was some value to the audience as well. And yeah, see you next month.